There is a strange feeling that almost every human has experienced, and it tends to show up in the most ordinary moments of your life. You walk into a room 5 minutes late, a few heads turn in your direction, and suddenly it feels like every single person in that space is watching you, analyzing you, silently forming an opinion. A week later, you're standing on a stage, you miss one word, and your heart immediately starts racing because you are now completely certain that everyone in the audience noticed. That same night, you upload a photo, the likes come in lower than expected, and something shifts. Because now it feels like everyone has already seen it and quietly judged it. Three completely different moments, and yet all three produce the exact same feeling inside your chest. The reason is simple. In all three cases, your brain has arrived at the same conclusion, that you are the center of everyone else's attention. But here's what decades of psychology research have actually found. Most people around you are barely noticing you at all. Your mistakes, your appearance, your awkward moments, almost everything you believe others are watching exists almost entirely inside your own mind. Psychologists gave this invisible illusion a name, the spotlight effect, and once you understand it, you may realize that the audience you feared never really existed. But how do we actually know this feeling isn't real? How can anyone measure whether people are truly watching us? Two psychologists at Cornell University thought they had found a way. In the year 2000, Thomas Gilovich, Victoria Medvec, and Kenneth Savitsky designed an experiment that looked almost ridiculous, but would become one of the most cited studies in modern psychology. They handed one student a t-shirt. Not just any t-shirt, a bright shirt with a huge photograph of Barry Manilow across the front. Among college students at the time, wearing that shirt was deeply embarrassing, exactly what the researchers wanted. The student was told to walk into a classroom where other students were already sitting, take a seat, wait a moment, then leave. Simple as that. Once outside, the researchers asked one question. How many people do you think noticed your t-shirt? The answer came almost instantly, around half the room. It felt obvious. The shirt was impossible to ignore. At least, that's what the student believed. Then the researchers asked the people inside. What do you remember about the student who just walked in? The results surprised everyone. Only about 1/4 of the room had actually noticed the shirt. Some students didn't even remember anyone walking in at all. The participants believed they were nearly twice as visible as they actually were. But maybe Barry Manilow was simply too embarrassing. So the researchers tried again, this time with t-shirts featuring admired figures like Bob Marley and Martin Luther King Jr. Surely people would notice those. The participants thought so too. Reality? Almost identical. Whether the shirt was embarrassing or flattering, people still believed they were being watched far more than they actually were. It wasn't the t-shirt, it was the mind. But one question still remained. If people barely notice us, why does our brain keep insisting that everyone is watching? The answer is hidden inside the way your brain works. Imagine you wake up one morning, look into the mirror, and notice a tiny pimple on your face. It isn't very big, but once you've seen it, you can't stop seeing it. Every glance in the mirror pulls your eyes back to the same spot. Later that day, you walk outside, meet friends, order coffee, talk to strangers. And all day long, one thought keeps following you. They're looking at it. They've noticed. They're just pretending not to say anything. But most people probably never saw it at all. Psychologists have a name for this. Egocentric bias. Not because we're selfish, but because we experience life from only one perspective, our own. You hear your own heartbeat, feel your own anxiety. Notice the stain on your shirt and the sweat on your forehead. Every tiny detail feels impossible to ignore because you've been living inside your own mind your entire life. And without realizing it, your brain makes one simple assumption. If I notice it, everyone else must notice it too. But they don't, because everyone else is living inside their own story. While you're thinking about your appearance, someone else is thinking about their job, their family, their own mistakes, their own anxiety. They aren't watching your spotlight, they're trapped inside their own. But your brain doesn't stop there. It makes another mistake, one psychologists call anchoring and adjustment. The moment you spill coffee on your shirt, your eyes lock onto that stain, and it becomes the starting point for every thought that follows. You try to tell yourself maybe people didn't notice, you try to adjust, but the adjustment never goes far enough. You stay anchored to your own experience. And that's why, again and again, we believe we're far more visible than we really are. But the spotlight effect doesn't end there. It has a twin, and in some ways, it's even more dangerous. Imagine you're standing on a stage, hundreds of people looking your way, your heart beating faster, your palms sweating, your voice shaking just slightly, and suddenly your brain tells you, they know, they can see it. Everyone can tell I'm nervous. But can they really? Thomas Gilovich and his colleagues decided to find out. They asked people to give speeches in front of an audience, and when the speeches ended, asked the speakers one simple question. How obvious do you think your nervousness was? Almost everyone gave the same answer. People could definitely tell. It was written all over my face. Then the researchers turned to the audience. How nervous did the speaker actually seem? The audience barely noticed. Some didn't notice any nervousness at all. The fear that felt so obvious inside the speaker's mind was almost invisible to everyone else. Psychologists call this the illusion of transparency. The belief that our inner emotions are visible to everyone around us. We think if we're sad, people can tell. If we're anxious, everyone can see it. But your inner world is far more hidden than you believe. Then in 2003, another experiment revealed something even more striking. Before giving a speech, one group was told just one thing. The audience cannot see your nervousness the way you think they can. No training, no practice. Just one psychological fact. The results were remarkable. The speakers felt less anxious, spoke with more confidence, and the audience rated them as calmer and more convincing. Simply knowing about the illusion changed the way they performed. Sometimes the biggest prison isn't other people's eyes. It's the story your own mind keeps telling you about those eyes. The answer to why this happens takes us back, not hundreds, not thousands, but millions of years to a world with no cities, no internet, no social media. Only small human tribes of perhaps 50 to 150 people. That was your entire world. Back then, if the tribe decided you were weak or strange, you could be cast out. And being cast out meant no protection, no food, no fire. Possibly no chance of surviving at all. In that world, what other people thought about you wasn't just your reputation, it was the difference between life and death. So evolution built an alarm system. Every time it felt like other people were watching you, judging you, or rejecting you, your brain raised the alarm. Because thousands of years ago, that alarm could save your life. The problem is the world changed. Your brain didn't. Today you don't live inside a tribe of 100 people. You live among 8 billion. In 1 week, you probably walk past more strangers than your ancestors met in their entire lives. But your brain is still running the same ancient software, still treating every pair of eyes as a potential threat, still believing every mistake could define you forever. And then modern life made that ancient software even stronger because now the spotlight doesn't disappear when you leave the room. It lives inside your pocket. Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Every social media app turned that ancient spotlight into something that never switches off. If the spotlight effect is only an illusion inside our minds, why does it feel so intensely real on social media? Why do we check our phones every few minutes after posting a photo? Why can 10 likes ruin an entire day? The answer is that social media didn't eliminate the spotlight effect. It upgraded it. Before, we only imagined people were watching us. Now, likes, views, comments, and followers turn that feeling into actual numbers. Psychologists call this the quantified spotlight, and it means your brain no longer has to rely on imagination alone. Every minute, it sees the evidence. You post a photo expecting 500 likes. An hour later, there are 65. Instantly, your brain starts telling a story. Everyone saw it. They didn't like it. What are people thinking? But the reality is that most people probably never saw your post at all. Some were offline, some kept scrolling, some were simply living their own lives. But your brain chooses the worst conclusion. Every time. That's why cyber psychology introduced a new term, posting paralysis, changing the filter again and again, rewriting the caption 20 times, and if the numbers don't arrive fast enough, deleting the post entirely. Have you ever done that? If you have, you're not alone. Today, millions of people spend less time living their real lives and more time managing their online image. But no one actually has a perfect life. Yet, somehow, everyone is pretending they do. Slowly, that digital spotlight becomes so bright that some people grow afraid of the real world, afraid to be photographed without filters, afraid of video calls, afraid to simply be seen. And for some, it grows into something far more serious, anxiety, even depression. But this is where the story changes. Because psychology doesn't only explain the problem, it also shows us how to escape it. But if the spotlight effect is only an illusion, can we actually escape it? Psychologists say yes, and the first step is just one question. Think back to last week. Can you remember what the person sitting across from you last Tuesday was wearing? Probably not. Can you remember who mispronounced a word during last week's presentation? Probably not. Can you remember whether a stranger at the mall had a pimple on their face? Probably not. So why do you believe everyone else will remember your smallest mistake? That is the deepest illusion of the spotlight effect. We imagine other people paying attention to us the same way we pay attention to ourselves. But every person is busy living their own life. Thomas Gilovich often reminds people of one simple truth: you are not the center of everyone else's world. Before your next speech, remember that research has already shown your nervousness is far less visible than it feels. Before your next meeting, remember that most people were probably thinking about what they were going to say next, not about your mistake. And if your next post doesn't perform the way you expected, remember that most people may never have seen it at all. Psychology offers one more piece of advice. Whenever you feel like everyone is watching you, move your attention away from yourself. Look around. What are other people wearing? What might they be feeling? The moment your attention shifts outward, the spotlight begins to fade. The next time you walk into a room a little late or step onto a stage or press the post button, and your brain whispers, "Everyone is watching," stop for just a moment and ask yourself one question. Can I remember a stranger's tiny mistake from yesterday? If the answer is no, then they probably won't remember yours either, because every person is standing beneath their own spotlight, and when everyone is busy watching themselves, almost nobody has time to watch you.